Hi, this is again Ziri from Friends Funeral Home. This time we're going to talk a little bit about the arrangements you have to make when somebody is about to pass, or even when somebody passes very surprisingly and you have to find a funeral home. Of course, today you go online if you haven't already made arrangements. You find a funeral home where you like the vibe. I always recommend for you to check the website and of course call them. And if they just transfer you forever and ask you to come to their office, maybe find something that is a bit more personal to you. We, for example, at Friends Funeral Home, we come to your home. We even meet you at a Starbucks or wherever you're comfortable, at the hospital. And then after, we finally get to know you after talking on the phone a little bit, we fill out paperwork. The paperwork you will need to make arrangements for somebody to be picked up from a funeral home is, first of all, of course, a contract with the funeral home. It can be as simple as 3 pages. Some funeral homes have these long things, we have to sign like as if you're signing your life away. Then you need some paperwork. It's called an order for release. The funeral home will provide you with that. This is basically the paperwork that you allow the funeral home to pick up the body. This could be at a hospital, a facility, or your own home when somebody dies. A quick word about this: if somebody dies on hospice at home, it's a beautiful thing. You can accompany them through the whole progress in your own timing without, let's say, hectical ER doctors or ICU cables hanging in and out of your body. And so, there's definitely a few words to be said about dying at home, which we get to later. So, but anyway, for now, the first thing you will need is to make an arrangement with the funeral home. You can also do this at need. If somebody just passed and you call them, they will always ask you to fill out this paperwork, which is called the order for release, which entitles us to pick up the body. And then there's actually a few other paperworks you will have to fill out, possibly the next day when you have calmed down a little bit. And one is including everything that needs to go in the death certificate. For this, you will need the following information. Of course, you need the full legal name, date of birth, social security number. You will need the place of birth, the state, or if outside the country, at least the country. Where this person has lived in the last few years, in which county, what work they did, what degree they have in their education, if they went to high school, if they went to college, what degrees do they have, and what work did they do, and how long did they do that work for. You will also need the names of the person who died, their parents. Sorry, this was bad English. You will need the names of the decedent's parents. The father's name of the person who died, the mother's maiden name of the person who died, and which state they were born in or which country they were born in. You will need to know if this person was a veteran, if at all. And then also, it's very advantageous if you have a doctor to sign the death certificate. If you are on hospice at home, the hospice will have a doctor to sign the death certificate. So that means this doctor has to give the funeral home the causes of death and then sign the death certificate. If you're in a hospital, the hospital often determines which doctor this will be. So if you provide the funeral home with the phone number of the hospice or the doctor or the hospital, this is very helpful. One thing, if you die at home or if a person you know dies at home and is not on hospice, make sure this person has been seen within 21 days by a doctor. This doctor can have come out to him or her, because otherwise you will automatically have to deal with the coroner. And the coroners usually do autopsies to find the causes of death, because then no doctor is really entitled to sign the death certificate. So for that reason, it's very important, if you know somebody is passing, set them up in a way that either they have a doctor come to visit them in the last 21 days, they're at the hospital, or have hospice involved at your home. Otherwise, you might want to avoid the coroner, because this is not just a lot of red tape. Of course, the body might get autopsied. And there is paperwork that you can sign if you want to avoid an autopsy. It's paperwork that states that you have, for religious reasons, problems with the autopsy. And in most cases, the coroner won't do it then unless it's a criminal case or a case of a contagious disease or something. So these are the most important parts of the paperwork. If you do a cremation, there's cremation paperwork to be filled out that states that you are the next of kin. That means it's another important case. The paperwork has to be filled out by the next of kin. This is normally the spouse of the person who dies or the power of attorney. And you don't just need a regular power of attorney, you need a very specific one. It's called durable power of attorney for healthcare. In the state of California, this is what you need because the regular power of attorney ends at death. So once you are either the spouse or the power of attorney, it's the easy part. If you are a distant relative or just a friend and there is nobody else, there's a very specific order in which the state of California determines who gets to sign. So if there's no spouse, then it would be the children of this person who passed away. If there are no children, it would be the siblings, there would be the parents, there would be distant relatives, and there would be friends. And so, just make sure before you actually think you can sign paperwork that you find out who is really the next of kin, because only they are legally able to make arrangements. And so again, for crematory, you need the cremation paperwork. You need to know if this person, for example, had or has a pacemaker, because a pacemaker is a radioactive device and needs to be removed before cremation. If you want this person to be buried and there's no arrangements made yet, know that if you want to be buried in the area of Los Angeles, mostly you will be looking at roughly $10,000 if you want a full funeral. This is because the cemeteries here are very expensive and all the cemetery costs come mostly between $5,000 and $6,000. And then it's not even the casket and not even the funeral home paid, or a viewing or service or anything like this. And so cremation is definitely cheaper. Most of them in the city are around $1,000. And so this is definitely one question. And then of course the question is, what kind of end of life celebration do you want to dedicate to that person? Are they very traditional or religious? Are they spiritual or maybe totally agnostic? Are they atheists? Which kind of religious belief system do they have? To accommodate what this family wants is one of our biggest wishes, always. And so I hope that you get a little prepared before you really face the situation, so you don't have to make all these decisions right there with a dead person lying next to you, because in this moment you want to focus on that person and you want to focus on your own heart to see how you feel in this presence. So the next time we talk a little about the practical things we can do once a person passes to create a little sacred moment and something like a little viewing or so before the body is picked up.